I may have accidentally stumbled on the best beginner miter saw on the market. This is the Skil 10-inch miter saw. More on how I accidentally stumbled into this in just a few. One thing I know is over the last couple of years, I have reviewed some Skil tools, namely the Skil table saw, now the Skil miter saw. They are coming back. Skil power tools used to be an iconic brand. Most people still call a circular saw a Skil saw for a reason. This may be their return to glory. Let's find out. If you follow this channel at all, you might know that I am always on mission to find a very good tool at a very good price. In other words, good value for what you're getting. And I think this punches above its weight class because of all the features you're getting in this saw, which we're gonna cover. Then we're gonna put it through the paces. Then I'll tell you what I don't like and a few upgrades we can make to this saw, simple upgrades that'll make it even better. Let's go. So how did I accidentally find this saw? Well, I've had so many requests to review this specific saw because people are buying it, they find it useful, find it amazing, and then they say, hey, you should review this on the channel. And then second, Lowe's reached out to me in a previous video that we made about 10 tools you could buy at Lowe's that are really good value and told me to pick out anything I wanted. And this was one of those I picked out because of your feedback. Now, I've been impressed, to say the least. Let's go over the features before we put it through the paces. First, let's get the boring out of the way, but very valuable information if you're in the market and your space is a concern. First and foremost, this saw will take up about 40 inches stem to stern with it fully extended, which isn't a terrible amount of space, but it is something to consider. Also, the saw is about 27 inches tall when it is fully extended to the top. And the width, you're looking at about 23.5 inches all the way across with those wings fully collapsed. Now, some of the amazing benefits of this saw at this price point, which is about $249 on regular price. First, you're getting a sliding dual bevel compound miter saw, and most saws in this price range are only basically a chop saw. In other words, they don't slide. Very few in this price range, especially with these feature sets, don't slide. And then you also get the dual bevel feature, which a lot of saws in this price range, hello DeWalt DW716, only bevels one way. This one will bevel both ways if you should need that. And speaking of bevels, you get 48 degrees of bevel to the right and 46 to the left. I don't know why they chose two more on one side or the other, but there you go. As far as miter capacity, it has 51 degrees both ways on the scale. Basically, they're saying you get 50 degrees either way. I do have a trick to get more degrees from your miter saw. I'll link to it at the end of this video. One thing that's very surprising feature on this saw is the fact that you do get that shadow line on the blade. Now, there is a button on top that activates that on or off. You can leave it on all the time, and anytime you come out to your saw, it's gonna be on. This allows you to see exactly where that blade is gonna cut, so it does help you get really good, accurate cuts. Even my DeWalt DWS779 does not have this feature, and I do like the shadow line more than the laser only because I'm red-green colorblind. In certain shades of green, like on the Makita laser, I couldn't see. On the Festool laser, I barely can see it. On the shadow line, I have zero issue seeing it. I do wish the Festool had the shadow line. And speaking of Festool, their clamp system that goes with their miter saw is one of the best on the market. You're gonna hate me for saying this if you're a Festool fan. This is a close second. This clamp is one of the better clamps that I've seen on a miter saw. Most of them have that screw down piece that just doesn't work well. This one is more like the Festool where it's just a lever action and it really does grab that board. So if you're really wanting a good clamp on your miter saw, this is a really good one. The only thing is you do have to slide these fences out of the way to be able to get that clamp on there and clamp down on thinner stock, and this is just about 1 inch thick. So even with 1.5 inch stock, you still need to move that fence back a little bit, which really isn't a big deal, but it's just something to consider. You do get the expandable wings on each side that'll give you about 8 inches or so of extra capacity just to help support that material. The only thing I'll say about those is there is an Allen key that locks these down, so if you tighten it too much with your Allen key, then you'll have trouble sliding it out. Otherwise, they work just fine. And speaking of the Allen key, the actual wrench is stored in the very back here, so you're not gonna lose it per se if you keep it in there. Those do fit your Allen on one end, and then the other is a Phillips head. You'll also use that to change your blade. One thing I will say is that the markings are well done. They're easy to read, easy to see that you're actually set on 0. Same thing with the miter, you can also see that. It's just a really nice pinpoint accuracy. A lot of times you get on the more budget level saws like the Win, it just wasn't as well made. It didn't look as thought out. It kind of looked cheaply done. This isn't the case. This seems like a well-made tool just based on the aesthetics that you're getting to see that you're gonna be using every single day, and that matters. As far as your miter goes, you do get positive stops here at 0, at 15, 22.5, 31.6, 45, and then it'll hard stop at 51, not at 50, and that goes both ways. So no matter which way you're going, you're getting those positive stops. You literally just pick up on this little trigger, and as it comes to it, it will automatically stop and click into place. You can also move it to any degree in between there, and then just tighten the handle to lock it down. The way you do bevel cuts on this saw is very similar to any other miter saw. There's a red knob, big old red knob at the back. You just loosen that, and then you can go left or right from there. But there is basically a tab up front, a black twist knob. You pull that out, and it unlocks it, so you can go all the way to the left or all the way to the right. Again, you can go to 48 degrees to the right, 46 to the left. And this does have a positive stop at 45 on the left and 48 on the right. Speaking of beveling, you need to move these fences just like most any other miter saw, because if you don't, there is a possibility that blade could hit that fence on those bevel cuts. Ask me how I know. It can happen easily. And so you need to be cautious of that, but these fences are easily adjustable. There's a thumb screw on the back. Just loosen that a little bit, and then you can slide those fences out of the way. And on the bevel cut, there's a handy chart right there for all of you who do crown molding. I'm assuming if you do crown molding, you may not need that chart, but if you're new to crown molding and you need a guide, it's there if you need that. I don't do crown molding. Before we put this thing through the paces and see how it cuts, check out the website, 731woodworks.com/store. I put together a beginner woodworking plan bundle. These are easy to follow, step-by-step build plans. Each one has its own build video to help guide you through the process. These are beginner focused so that you can make some really awesome projects. This is a 14 plan bundle, and if you bought each one individually, you'd pay 28% more. So you're saving 28% off by picking up the bundle, all these awesome plans. Go check it out, 731woodworks.com/store. Look for the beginner bundle. As far as power goes on this saw, you get a 15 amp motor, plenty of power to blast through anything. I was cutting through these 3 2x6s, no problem at all. It didn't even bog down that motor any. It was just right through it, done a really good job. Now the cut capacity is limited because you are on a 10-inch saw. But over the last couple of years, I've personally had a 10-inch saw in the shop, had very little issues I ever run into capacity issues. This saw will give you 4 inches of depth cut at 90 degrees, over 2 2x6s stacked, so about 2.5 here stacked up. And then as far as sliding goes, 12 inches across, that's a 2x12, or if you're cutting 12-inch shelving, anything like that with plywood, this will be able to cut that. There is also a depth stop on here, so if you need to cut half flaps, dados, things like that, you can do it on the saw, and it does give you those fine adjustments because it's just a screw that screws down. I wish that was a little better, but that's pretty typical on any saws, especially in this price range. It works, and it works well, so if you need it, there it is. So before I get into what I don't like, let me cover what I really like about the saw, the price. I love the price of this saw. At about $249 regular price, you can catch it on sale here and there, but even at $249, you're still getting a good deal. The shadow line. I love the shadow line on this saw. I wish all saws had the shadow line. I think this is just a really good option to have. Again, the clamp, I liked it. The capacity we have here is good for a 10-inch saw. The power is amazing for the 10-inch saw. You're not gonna have any problems with the power of the saw cutting your normal woodworking stuff. I like the adjustability of the saw. It's very legible. You can see it. Everything moves, slides nice. It's not sloppy, it's not cheap feeling, it just does feel like a really well-made saw. One thing that I do like, and it's a very important like on miter saws, is accuracy. Out of the box, perfect square cuts, no issues there, and the blade is perfect 90 degrees to the bed or the table of the miter saw. So there's no issues with the vertical or the horizontal 90 degree. I like that. Before getting into the accessories that will really upgrade this, let me tell you what I really don't like or I wish was a little different. The dust collection is not the greatest at all here. You can see quite a bit of dust flying up. Is it terrible? It's a miter saw, so most miter saws are gonna have poor dust collection. Even the Festool Capex, not amazing dust collection no matter what they tell you. It's just okay, but that's just the nature of miter saws. They just create a lot of dust. And as with most saws, especially in this price point, the blade could be better. It's not bad. It's not a bad blade to get started with. If you're just a beginner starting out, this will service you for several weeks if you're doing a lot of woodworking, maybe a month or two if you're not doing as much. It can be upgraded. I'll drop a link in the description to my favorite blade in this size range. I think a miter saw, especially for woodworkers, you should be running an 80 tooth or so. The higher tooth count's gonna give you a finer cut on those cross cuts, which is what we're making on these saws. Cross cuts, that's what we bought it for. And one other don't like is kind of a nitpick is I don't like how long it takes the blade to spin down. I do wish there was a blade break there. When you cut all the way through your piece, you need to let the blade stop before you raise it up. It's just common practice on a miter saw, and you're gonna be waiting just for a few seconds because it takes it a minute to spin down. But really, that's just being nitpicky. And that's really the only things I really don't care for on this saw. And that's saying something, because there are a lot of saws in this price range that have a whole host of problems or stuff that you don't really like to see in a saw. But for the most part, I've been impressed. Now there's 3 accessories you can add to this saw aftermarket once you get the budget, or you can just buy it with the saw, that will really make this saw stand out, especially in this price range. First and foremost, obviously the blade. Pick up an 80 tooth. Again, I'll drop a link to my favorite ones that you can pick from depending on your budget level. But an 80 tooth blade will make a huge difference on the cleanliness or less tear out of the cut. Second, dust collection. You can pick up something like this Dust Right hose adapter kit. I like this kit because it adapts to a whole bunch of stuff, not just this miter saw, but also a sander or any other routers, things like that that you already have in the shop, so you can use it on multiple different things. And it comes with its own hose that adapts to a shop vac hose or even the Festival hose that I have here. So it really is an adaptable kit. And the third and final thing I think you should upgrade is the throat plate. This one has a very wide throat plate opening at almost a ½ inch wide, which is a lot of gap there. Small pieces will get down in there and get clogged up and just cause you all kind of trouble. And on the bottom side of your cut, you'll see more tear out when you don't use something like zero clearance tape. I like this stuff because you get 5 strips of it. You can cut it to fit this exact space or length of your throat plate here. And it just works well. I've used it on my DeWalt saw that's up there for years. Like, I used it for years and years, and I love that stuff. I think it's just some of the best value stuff you can add to a miter saw to really help clean up those cuts and prevent that tear out underneath. And more importantly, or as important, it keeps those chunks from falling down in there. If you're just starting out as a beginner woodworker or even intermediate woodworker, and you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on a tool, but you want a good one, especially a miter saw, check this one out, the Skil miter saw. It's just a fantastic value at this price point. I've been seriously impressed with this saw because of how much it costs and all the features you're getting on this saw that most other saws, you're gonna lose stuff like sliding capability or dual bevel or no shadow line. Just a whole bunch of stuff that you don't get at this price range. I think this is a good one. Link in the description and the pinned comment if you want to check this one out. Or you can click that view products button, shop right here on YouTube. If you like this video, there's tips and tricks, including how to get more degrees out of your miter saw in that video. You gotta go watch it. Click that box, get you the big old virtual fist bump. Thanks for watching.